Today we will be making an extra fine crepe paper aster. And the crepe paper colors we're going to be using are extra fine and lilac, extra fine and juniper, and then heavy crepe paper and nectarine. You'll also be needing 24 gauge floral wire. You can use either green or white. Some of the tools we'll be using are the scalloped pinking shears, detail scissors, a fringe clip, and then the smallest size steel ball shaping tool. We will be using some other tools and materials, and those can be found in the post or in the printable PDF tutorial. Let's get started. To begin, you're going to want to cut out all of the crepe paper pieces you will need following the PDF template. You can either cut these by hand or by using a cutting machine with a rotary blade. I cut all of the extra fine crepe paper using a Cricut cutting machine, and then the heavy crepe paper I chose to cut by hand. To get started, we're going to make our stamen. Go ahead and stretch stamen A all the way out, and then you're just going to cut that piece in half. You should end up with a piece that's a little over 4 inches long, and then I'm going to fold it in half and place it in the fringe clip. Just place the very edge in the clip. And now I'm going to fringe it. I'm going to be sure to cut on the fold first. And I'm cutting all the way down to the fringe clip. And I'm going to fringe as small as I can. Once you've fringed it, you can take it out of the fringe clip, open it back up. And then I'm going to place one end back into the fringe clip. And I'm going to roll this fringe stamen between my fingers. So I'm just rubbing my fingers back and forth, and this will roll the fringe. This just helps with separating and makes the individual stamen a little bit smaller, makes them look a bit wispy. You can move your fringe clip down. And once you've rolled that fringe, you can take it out of the fringe clip and set it aside. Next, we're going to take stamen B and the pollen. So this larger one is stamen B and the smaller one is the pollen. We're going to stretch these out fully. And these ones we're going to cut back to their original length. They should be about 2.5 inches long. You can just follow your template guide for sizing. I'm going to take my white glue now and place a line of glue down the center of the pollen and then apply glue below that center line. I'm going to place my stamen over the top of that glue, just up to the center of it. And then I'm going to apply glue to the top half of that pollen piece. I will fold the pollen over the edge of the stamen. I'm just going to trim the end off that didn't quite get any pollen folded over the edge. And now I'm going to place this into the fringe clip. And I'm going to take my scalloped pinking shears and I'm just going to cut the top folded edge of the pollen off. And then using my detailed scissors, I'm going to fringe. And you can just fringe following the scalloped edges. So much thicker fringes than stamen A. So I'm just cutting in between each scallop, and I'm cutting all the way down to the fringe clip. Once I've done that, I'm going to now roll the stamen between my fingers. These are a little bit harder to roll because they are thicker and they've got a bit of glue on them. But you do want to make sure that you're rolling them before the glue dries all the way. If they get stuck together, just use your fingers to pull them apart. And once all of those stamen are rolled, you can remove it from the fringe clip and just set it aside to dry. Next, we will take a 24 gauge wire and we will take stamen A and apply some glue along the bottom edge. We are going to roll the stamen around the tip of our wire. Make sure it's a really tight roll so it stays in place, and just continue rolling right on top of itself I always like to roll it between my fingers a little bit once I'm finished, and this will just help kind of compress it, make sure everything's holding in place really well. And then you're going to want to use your finger to kind of fluff it up, spread it out, so push all of that fringe outward. Now we're going to take our stamen B, add a little bit of glue to the base, and wrap it around our stamen A. The pollen on stamen B should just be just above stamen A, so it's a little bit higher. Once you've wrapped it around, you can again just kind of fluff it up and out, and then we're going to set this aside to dry. Next, we're going to shape our petals. To do that, you're going to need your steel ball tool, and we are going to be using the smallest end. And this is the smallest steel ball tool that comes in the set. You should have 15 petals. And go ahead and take one petal in your hand, and you're going to hold the base between two fingers. Take the steel ball tool, place it close to the base, and place your other thumb on top of the petal, and then pull the petal between the steel ball tool and your thumb. This should create a line down the center of the petal. You may need to do this once or twice before you really get that line down the center. And this does take a bit of practice. These petals are very small, so you may want to cut out some extra petals just in case you rip any of them. And you will do this to all 15 petals. Once you've finished shaping your petals, we're going to add them onto our flower. I'm going to place a little pile of glue here. I'm going to take one petal at a time, and I'm going to place just the base of the petal in the glue and then glue it onto my flower. And I'm going to be adding these just in sets of 4. So one across from the other. And I am lining up the base of the petal with the base of the stamen. So the second set of 4 I'm just placing in between each of those first 4 petals. So that's how my flower looks with those first 8 petals on. And now the remaining petals, you should have 9 left. I'm going to place a little bit higher up underneath the flower so that the petals appear to be a bit longer when you're looking down at the flower. So I'm not lining these up with the base of the stamen anymore. The base is a little bit higher. And for placement for these petals, I'm just kind of adding them evenly around the flower, just making sure none of them rest directly underneath another petal. Make sure you're looking down at your flower as you add petals, so that you can tell where there may be any gaps and where the next petal needs to be added, especially as you get down to your last few petals. Now that you've finished adding your petals, we are going to add the sepals to the base of the flower. Take one of your sepal pieces and take your curling tool, and we're just going to curl the tip of the sepals and then place a line of glue on the base. You want the sepals to curl in towards the flower. Then just wrap it around the base of your flower. And then to finish this flower, you're going to take a strip of juniper crepe paper, and starting at the sepal, we're just going to wrap down the wire about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Then you can set this flower aside until we're ready to build our full stem. You're going to want to make at least 2 to 4 flowers per stem. And next we're going to make our bud. So take another 24 gauge wire. Go ahead and grab your strip of bud petals and your curling tool. We're going to curl all of the bud petals in one direction. And we want these bud petals to curl in. So go ahead and place glue on one side. And these bud petals should be curling up. Now we're going to wrap this around the tip of a 24 gauge wire, and I'm just kind of rolling the wire so that the bud petals wrap around. And I'm moving down very slightly as I wrap these bud petals so they aren't all even. Once you've wrapped them around, you can kind of press on the top of the petals. This will curl them a bit more and also spread them out. Then we'll take another set of sepals, again curling them, and then adding glue to the base. And then we are going to wrap this strip of sepals around the bud petals. And again, move down slightly as you wrap. Once you've added those sepals, we are going to wrap about 1.5 inches of wire below the bud, just using that same strip of juniper crepe paper. Then you can set this aside to add to your stem later. And again, you're going to want about, I'd say 2 to 5 buds per stem. Next, we're going to build our stem. So I like to start with 2 buds. I'm going to place one slightly higher than the other and attach them together using a strip of juniper crepe paper. I'm going to wrap down at least 1 inch to 2 inches, and then I'm going to add a flower. And you want to leave at least 1 inch of stem below the flower before it attaches to the larger stem. I'm going to add another bud and then a second flower. I'm just arranging the positioning of these buds and flowers, and I'm going to stop adding there and continue to wrap all the way down my wires. First, I'm going to trim these wires at the end so that they're about even. Continue wrapping all the way down to cover the wires, and just make sure you add a bit of glue at the very end of your wrap to hold everything in place. Okay, now we're going to add a few small leaves to this stem. So you have 2 different leaf sizes. You have these. They're all small. This one's slightly larger, and this one's very small. We don't need to shape these at all. The larger rounded end is the base of the leaf. And the smaller leaves I'm going to place just below buds or just below flowers. You just put a little bit of glue, and then I'm going to place this one just below this first bud up here. You can kind of just pinch it around the wire. The larger leaves I'm going to place where the flowers or buds kind of meet the stem, or just lower down the wire, just like that. And I like to add 1 small leaf per bud and flower. So I'm going to continue doing that. And once you attach it, you can kind of pull it out with your finger so it's more visible and isn't laying flat against that wire. There's no set amount of leaves you need. I like cutting out a lot, maybe a bit more than I need, just to make sure I have enough. And these cut nicely on the Cricut. I'm going to attach a few leaves a little bit lower down on the stem below my flowers. You can use your needle nose tweezers to get in there and kind of pinch the leaves around the wire and then to pull the leaf back out. This helps if your fingers start to get a little bit sticky from the glue. And here's your completed stem of aster flowers. And here's a couple more stems that I made. So you can see this one has 4 flowers and just 2 buds at the top. And then I have another one here that has 3 flowers and 4 buds. I like to make stems with varying amounts of buds and flowers so they don't all look the same. You can kind of group them together in a nice little bouquet, or these make a great filler flower if you want to add a little bit of color. Thanks for joining.